Hello everyone. In this video I am going to be speaking with Mr. Charles Mundy. Now if you are one of my viewers that go on YouTube often and look for training videos, you've probably come across a few of his videos. So stay tuned. Bye.
Good morning, Charles.
Good morning. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. I appreciate you taking the time out today to speak with me and my subscribers because we have a lot of questions that we want to talk about. And I know that you are the perfect person to speak with.
Okay. All right.
So how about you introduce yourself?
All right. Charles Mundy, the owner and instructor for ELLC. ELLC stands for the Exodus Logistics Learning Center. What we currently do is we provide basic level training for individuals who want to become independent dispatchers, independent freight dispatchers. And we also provide basic level training for individuals who want to become freight brokers. So we have two separate training platforms specifically for beginners to give those individuals a basic foundational overview of what those two topics are. Our audience are those individuals who know very little, if anything, about the industry. So we are in the transportation industry. The easiest entry point, and in my estimation, is coming in as a freight dispatcher. There's less overhead, there's less requirements, and then transitioning maybe into a freight broker, maybe starting a trucking company. Right now, as it stands, we train dispatcher one-on-one training for beginners, and then we have a freight broker one-on-one training for beginners. We are also introducing other trainings as well, trucking one-on-one if you want to start a transportation company, a trucking company. What are the basic requirements? The basic requirements of being a broker, the basic requirements of being a dispatcher, and then we're going to have the basic requirements of starting a trucking company. Me personally, I've been in the industry for a little over 20 years as a driver, working with freight brokerages, consulting, dispatch companies, and now I'm pretty much just training and consulting at this point. Also involved in a little bit of intermodal, a little bit of customs brokering, a little bit of warehousing distribution, cross-dock, transload, things like that. So there's a vast array of ways to earn a living in this industry. If you are here listening on this call and you decide to get into the transportation space, you are in the right industry because it is recession proof. We've had several I like to call planks, but yet freight still moves. Things still have to be delivered. Things are still manufactured. The society still needs those goods. If the trucks were to stop, the economy would shut down, right? So you chosen an industry that you just have to find your way in it, your entry point, and your niche or your niche, however you pronounce that word, into the industry, and then learn that niche or niche, and then scale from there. So that's a little bit about me. So.
Okay, thank you. So everyone, if you were listening to what Charles was saying, the transportation industry is huge. It is huge. You can find a perfect niche for you and jump into it and start making, some money. So I also want to tell you guys, if you've been on this journey with me, then you know from my very first video, I said that I went on YouTube and I watched a lot of training videos to be a dispatcher. 90% of my videos was Charles's YouTube videos, dispatcher one-on-one. So that's why I'm so excited really to have him, talk with me today, because I was looking at his videos before I even had the opportunity to actually meet with him. And also in my video, also in my dispatching journey video, I told you guys that I had been looking on YouTube, looking at training videos, and I started working for a trucking company. After working with the trucking company, I did decide to be an independent dispatcher. And that's what a lot of us dispatchers are doing now, going out, finding carriers. So I jumped into Charles's Dispatcher 101 training course. I've been getting a lot of comments. A lot of people have been asking me what training courses that I've taken, and it was Charles. It was Charles because, like I said, I saw 90% of his videos in the beginning on YouTube. He's been doing it for years now. I'm going to call him a GOAT. That's it. I said it. I'm not going to take it back. I'm going to call him the greatest of all time because he's been doing it for a very long time. I've learned so much from him on his videos. I've learned more in his class. So when I asked him to do this Zoom video with me, I was psyched, guys. I was completely psyched. And so
I appreciate that.
Of course. I wanted to ask you some questions that I've been getting in my comments.
Sure.
And I know you can answer them. So that's what this video is really about today, as well as telling people about the training courses that you offer for dispatchers and brokers.
Okay.
So my first question is it necessary to pay for a dispatching training course? And do you need any certification?
It is not necessary to pay for dispatch training courses. It is advantageous if you don't know a lot about dispatching to consider at least paying or getting with someone who has, not necessarily me, but someone else. If you decide to do that, training, because you will be a part of a network of individuals who have or are doing what it is that you are aspiring to do, right? Now you can go on YouTube University, right, and do it, but not everything. You're not going to get everything in dispatching from YouTube. That's not going to happen. Never.
That is true.
It will never happen. So do not deceive yourself into thinking that you will, right? You can try it and go through the experience, but don't say I didn't warn you. But so that's number one. Number two, a certification is not certified. Being a dispatcher is not a necessity. A certificate is just a piece of paper with ink on it. It means absolutely nothing. My students have been asking me to create some kind of certificate of understanding or certificate of going through Charles's program. And if that makes you feel better, I'll go ahead and print that out. That's not a problem. But a certificate, a certificate to me is when someone actually understands what they're doing, get a carrier, dispatch for them consistently, and is making money. That is the certificate that I think that a person should have, not just a piece of paper hanging on a wall. You can have a piece of paper on a wall, but if you're not utilizing the concepts that you've gotten from that piece of paper, then it's all for naught, right? So that's just my take on it. Others have different takes, but yeah, so a certificate is not required to be in dispatching, and you do not necessarily have to take someone's paid training. That is a choice, okay?
Okay, thank you, Charles. I totally agree with you. I was looking at YouTube videos, but eventually I knew that I had to get into a training course because there were just things that I was tired of learning the hard way, to be honest with you.
Right. I'm sorry to interrupt, but you want to have, if you think that you don't need the training, there needs to be some kind of formal structure and formal outline that you want to follow. Otherwise, you're going to be circling back and forth, bumping your head, right? But there is a process and a workflow into doing this. There are steps involved in that. Now, whether you want to go through that the hard way or the easy way, that's totally your choice, right? But there are steps to it. And you have those, you have different personality types. You have the type that, well, I know it all. I don't need to pay anybody for this. I'll go online and learn it. And that's fine. And then when you get to a point where you get stuck, then you're going to reach out to someone and say, hey, what is this or what is that, right? Well, how about you knew it all, right? So, but yeah, it's again, it's a choice. It is a choice.
Okay. And like I said, I totally agree with you. All right, so my next question, is the market flooded and what is the demand? And I know that's a general question, but that's a common question I get.
So is the market flooded with dispatchers, you're asking?
I'm assuming that the person is asking me about dispatchers, but if you can just elaborate on that and talk about dispatchers and just, the trucking industry, maybe the person was talking about equipment. Let's just work with that.
Okay, so the market, so there seems to be a plateau. There used to be a shortage of carriers, truck drivers, and now it's starting to plateau itself as far as the market is concerned. But there is the market is flooded with individuals who are calling themselves dispatchers, independent freight dispatchers. It is flooded. I'll be honest and realistic with you, but it is flooded with those who don't have a clue of what they're doing. So your job and my job as trainers or individuals who are trying to give them the right way, we're trying to weed out those who don't know what they're doing and replacing them with individuals who are dispatching correctly for the carriers, because those who don't know what they're doing from a dispatcher's perspective are giving dispatchers sort of a bad name in the eyes of carriers, right? Because all these dispatchers are here, well, let me find you some loads, and they'll find a load, they'll find some freight for this carrier and then send them over to Boise, Idaho with a drive-in. They can't get out of there for a few days, right? So they're losing money. So you got to understand directional dispatching, where to send them into and out of, how those, rates and all these other things. It gets into a little bit of that. So yes, it's flooded with dispatchers, but it's flooded with dispatchers who don't know what they're doing. So our job is to kind of weed that out.
Absolutely. What is the startup course to become a dispatcher?
The startup costs?
The cost, yeah.
Okay. Well, you would have to come up with you have to create your business. So in whatever state you are in, whatever the requirements of starting a business in that state, whether you need an articles of organization, whether you need to register your business with that particular state, whatever the costs incurred for that, to get your business license, your LLC or whatever structure you have, sole prop, S corp, whatever, and then attach your EIN to that, right? And that's that. And then whether or not an expense can also be whether or not you pay for some training, that, and then you pay for access to software that you're going to need to help you dispatch, such as a load board, such as some kind of Office, Microsoft Office or QuickBooks or things like that. So the back end costs of things like that. That's pretty much it. The overhead is pretty low as compared to other entry points like trucking. Trucking is pretty expensive to get in. Freight brokering there are costs involved in that. So, but dispatching that's another reason why I say it's an easy entry point, because of the low overhead. You just got to start your business, consider formal training if you need it or not, and then the extra materials that you need for your back office infrastructure, whether load board, software, computer, laptop, desktop, internet, phone, pretty much it. So $3,000, $2,000, depending on if you know some people who got some good used computers, good internet system, 100 up, 100 down as far as the speeds, upload and download speeds, megabytes. So it's pretty minimal.
I agree. I mean, and a lot of us already have computers at home, already have the internet. So it's not like we're going out and purchasing something that we don't have already.
Right.
So it is, at least it was for me. And it is for a lot of other people, which is why a lot of us decide to be dispatchers first before we decide to go and be brokers.
Right.
So that's very true. Does a dispatcher need insurance? And what is an authority?
Okay. Dispatchers, if you are going to be dispatching out of a brick and mortar, a building, an office building, and you're going to have employees sub-dispatching under you, then I recommend getting some kind of at least liability insurance. You know, one of your employees may fall, bump their head on the desk. There's a lawsuit, right? But if you're working from home by yourself and you got your team of sub-dispatchers working remotely, then insurance, that expense you don't have to incur. It's not needed, right? Unless you just want to provide some kind of supplemental insurance for your employees and things like that. But from a startup costs perspective, no. And what is an authority? An authority is permission that's governed by an organization called the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. For the truck drivers, the authority is for them to have the ability and the authority to transport goods, pick up goods from shippers and deliver them to receivers. From the broker's perspective, it's the authority to arrange for the transportation of picking up those goods via the carriers. Those are the only two parties that are required to have an authority. Dispatchers are not required, nor do they need to have what's called an operating authority. That's a common question that's asked about a lot of people who are entertaining coming into this industry. As a dispatcher, do I need an authority? No, you do not. You just need a business structure set up and created properly, and that's it. But an operating authority applies to carriers, owner-operators, and freight brokers, and it's governed by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. If you go to their website, fmcsa.dot.gov/registration, and you search for that the form, the application, it's called the application for motor carrier and freight broker. It's called the OP-1 form. Nowhere on there does it say dispatcher. It applies to the motor carriers and the freight brokers. So that right there should be enough evidence, or enough proof, I should say, for you that an authority is not required. Now you have freight broker organizations and watchdog groups like TIA, who is trying to introduce legislation to require dispatchers to get an authority as freight brokers. So, and that's been going on for years. Every 3 to 5 years, they'll come out with this another legislation proposal and saying, hey, we think dispatchers are glorified brokers and they should be required, just like us, to get that $75,000 bond, to apply for an operating authority, and all the other requirements that brokers are required and governed by under the FMCSA. But to this day, and this has been going on for years, 10, 15 years in my understanding, even maybe even more before my time. So,
right.
But dispatchers do not require an operating authority.
Okay. And I hope that Charles was able to give you guys some clarity on that question. Oh, here's a very popular question. How do you subscribe to the load board if you're not a driver?
Well, the one way, so I have a load board that I've partnered with. I actually know the owner of the load board. The load board is called 123 Load Board. The owner's name is Lauren Metzen. He has on my website, I have a partnership with them. If you go click the link and subscribe, you can subscribe to his load board. You get 30 days for free. After the 30 days, you can choose one of his subscription packages, which is $35, $45, or $55 a month, which is the premium, which is what I recommend for my students and others, without having an MC. You do not even need an MC authority to subscribe to 123 Load Board coming through our partnership link. So, but outside of that, let's say that wasn't the case. If you are dispatching and you have a carrier or an owner-operator that you're dispatching for, you would simply get the permission from the owner-operator to use their operating authority, their MC number and DOT number, to purchase the subscription to the load board, because most load boards require an MC or DOT. That's the whole purpose of it. It's for the carriers to go on the load boards to find loads according to their requirements, and for the brokers and shippers to post those loads for sale. So you need an authority in order to do that. Well, as a dispatcher, the way to get around that, if you are dispatching for a carrier, you are under a dispatcher agreement with that carrier, that owner operator, that truck driver. simply get their permission, and they'll say, yeah, of course they're going to say, yeah, it's just 6 digits or 7 digits in the case of DOT. They'll say, yeah, and you're paying for it, Mr. Dispatcher? Of course you can use my MC number if it's going to lead to you finding me better paying loads. Then obviously I have no problem with that, because that's all it is you're just going to the whatever load board you get, DAT, 123, truck stop, going in there, signing up for it, entering the MC DOT number. Now they're going to verify the MC and DOT number by calling the owner of that MC or DOT number. So now that's another thing, another reason why your carrier should be aware that you're doing that, because once they call it and confirm it, and your carrier confirms it, then you just set up the payments and as a dispatcher. And can you use that load board that you got for your carrier's MC for other carriers that you're dispatching for? Of course you can. The only purpose of getting a load board is just to get in and get a subscription for it. You can find loads for anyone after that. You had to get in first, right? So, but yeah, you can get load boards.
Right, and I just want to piggyback off of what you just said, Charles. So the first thing I want to say is, with joining Charles's training program, he does offer multiple load boards and access to those load boards, 6 of them. He offers 6 load boards that you can use. So while you're in training, if you happen to bring on a carrier, you're already set up with 6 load boards, and you can start looking for loads for those carriers. So that is a great benefit and joining his training program. Secondly, when you send out something called a carrier profile, there should be a section that asks if your drivers are on any type of load boards. And most of them are. They're on at least 6 or 7 load boards. Don't be afraid to ask them if you can access the load board. Don't be afraid to ask them, hey, can I get your username and password? Because now I'm going to be on the load board instead of you, and I need to find you loads. They have no problem with doing that. So I just wanted to piggyback off of that answer. Next question. What's the best way to cancel a load? And is there a universal metric system that brokers are using to view these cancellations?
Well, the best way to cancel the load is contacting the broker. So that's the universal metrics or analytics that the brokers use, because once you cancel a load with a broker for whatever reason, the broker's aware of that, and they're going to put it into their what's called a TMS system, transportation management software, and they'll notate it. Now, if it was a good cancellation, you may still have a relationship with that broker. If it was a bad cancellation, like your driver just said, I don't want this load for whatever reason, or they get to the shipper to pick the load up, but then they cancel, and because the broker is expecting them to pick that load up, they told the shipper that they have capacity, they have a truck for this load, then all of a sudden this get canceled. That's a bad cancellation. The broker may put you on what's called a DNU list, do not use, right? Because now you've created a bad taste in their mouth. So, but to answer the question, yes, canceling the load is directly, you have to let the broker know whether it's a good or bad cancellation. It's a communication. It's always a communication thing between you, either you or your driver, you being the dispatcher, or your driver, your carrier, and the broker. You have to keep those lines of communication open, right? Whether good or bad, because all parties in the progression and the workflow of moving freight need to be aware of things as they happen, right? As opposed to later on. Let's say your carrier didn't tell you they had a flat tire on the interstate, they had a blowout, and then you and the broker is expecting on-time delivery later on, but you discovered in an hour or so later, he calls you and say, oh, by the way, man, I'm waiting on roadside to come fix my flat. Right? Well, why did you tell me so I can tell the broker so that they can call the shipper or the receiver,
Right.
I'm sorry,
Right.
to let them know that there's going to be a delay. Either we need to push this to the next day or give us a few extra hours. So there needs to be open communication there. But yeah, you have to, the dispatcher or your carrier, if they don't have a dispatcher, have to stay in constant communication with the broker, because the broker is literally in the middle of this process between your carrier, the dispatcher, and their customer or their customer's customer, which is the receiver. The receiver is the customer of the shipper, and the brokers are working with the customers, the shippers. So,
right, transparency is very, very important. Now, you just mentioned something, Charles, and I don't know if my subscribers, of my viewers even understand. What is a TMS system? Is that what you said? TMS
right,
system.
T as in Tom, M as in Mary, S as in Sam. TMS is transportation management software. Most brokers and shippers have this software. What it is it's a combination of a CRM, which is a customer relationship management platform, and a CMS, content management platform. It's a big database. It has everything internalized. Brokers keep track of who their customers are, the trucks that they're using, whether they're asset-based or not, trucks that are onboarded to them or trucks that they own, or asset-based brokerages. They keep tracks of accounts payable, accounts receivable, any trailers, the lanes they're running, all the data that's needed in the workflow of that specific brokerage is housed in that centralized database called a TMS system. Popular TMS systems, Ascend, Load Manager, Load Pilot, eFreight Solutions, Aljex. One of the largest ones on the planet and the most expensive one is called McLeod's. It's about $25,000 per month.
Woo, that's expensive.
But these are for the large boys, right? So, but those are TMS systems. Now, as a dispatcher, do I need a TMS system? Well, no. You're putting the cart before the horse. If you are dispatching for 10 or less trucks as a dispatcher, a simple Excel spreadsheet will suffice.
Right.
Because you can do functions and formulas in there as if it was a TMS system. Because all you're doing is keeping track of your driver's first and last name, their truck and trailer, the numbers, the equipment types, the emails, phone numbers, pretty much it, right? For accounting and tax purposes. Now, if you want to take on that task of purchasing a TMS system and adding to your overhead, Ascend is the least expensive of all those, right? And out of the box, Ascend is easy to configure. So
it sounds like the TMS system is something that the brokers deal with and dispatchers don't at the end of the day. But if we decide to do something like that, then the best one would be Ascend. I do want to talk a little bit more about canceling a load and whether or not the brokers, other brokers can view these cancellations. So right now, I'm currently dispatching for a few people who have new authorities. And we were using a broker and we had to cancel the load. When I called this broker back, it's a very large broker, when I called them back, the broker basically told me, we can't put you on this load. We can't put you on this load because this shipper requires that you have run at least 3 loads within 3 months without any cancellation. So I know, depending on the broker, they do have a system, probably TMS. They do have a system where they are taking notes on whether or not you're successful with delivering a load or not. So we as dispatchers have to keep that in mind and understand also that it's not a reflection of us. It's not a reflection of us, it's a reflection of the driver. So you can call the broker again with a different driver who obviously has a different MC number, and you can book a load with that broker. Am I correct?
That is correct. And you made some good touch points too. So if you're working with a large brokerage, they have an internetwork system where they can see each other internally with that specific brokerage, right? They can, but separate brokerages cannot see each other's data, right? But if you have a large brokerage who have satellite offices all over the country, and you're trying to book loads under that same MC number that canceled the previous load, then of course, if they notate that in the system that this person canceled a load, it's going to be seen network wide within that same brokerage across not only the main office, but their satellite offices. What that is called is EDI integration, electronic data interchange. EDI integration gives the brokerages the ability through the TMS system not only to transfer data from shippers to the brokerages in order to create rate confirmations, but also to be able to see other analytical data that they can determine whether or not they're going to work with carriers or not, based off of whether they canceled loads, whether there was claims filed, damaged freight, all types of different analytics, right? And canceling loads is one of those analytics. So EDI, electronic data interchange, is a functionality of that's part of the TMS system that's used internetwork, I guess if that's a word, internet workably with the one brokerage across all of their satellite offices. That's how you communicate. Just like you have in like Verizon, for example. Verizon is a large phone company, right? They do internet, Fios, and all this other stuff, but they have satellite offices all over the country and the world, actually. So they communicate internet workably through the internet, right? Now, EDI is part of the process of that. So the same thing holds true for a specific brokerage that has that type of capability, EDI capability. They can see if if this number flags as being a number that canceled a load and that they're not willing to work with based off of the requirements of a particular shipper that told them we only work with carriers who this, and this, and if they cancel the load within certain, then they don't qualify for this particular shipment. So
right. That's correct. And I also want to tell my viewers, this is where having a good relationship with your broker is important, because you can call for a load and they'll tell you, oh, the load is covered. And 2-3 hours later, you still see that load on the load board. And it's really not that the load is covered. It's just that you didn't meet the shipper's requirements. But if you have a relationship with a broker, then they'll tell you, you know, you didn't meet the requirements, sorry, you know, but now you know. So having a strong relationship with your broker, being transparent with the broker is extremely important. So I think I have 2 more questions left for you.
okay.
No, I don't. What is a lane and why does it matter?
A lane is any origin point to any destination point. So if you're picking up, I'm in Norfolk, Virginia Beach, going to wherever you're from, Chasa. So
I'm from PA.
Okay, so Philly, let's say Philly.
Okay.
So that is a lane, that one direction pickup to delivery, that is one lane. Why it's important is because certain lanes in certain directions, whether east to west, west to east, north to south, south to north, pay better rates across specific equipment types than others. Okay, that's why it's important. So you have like for example, lanes that run from the Midwest to the Southeast pay pretty good. From the Southeast to the Southwest for, let's say, a drive-in, flatbed, or reefer, which is what we train starting out our students on the 3 major equipment types: the 53-foot drive-in, 53-foot reefer, and the 48 or 53-foot flatbed. There are other equipment types: hot shots, box trucks, sprinter vans, cargo vans. But lanes and regions or zones is very important, because you got to understand as a dispatcher where you're sending your carriers to in proportion to what is being paid going in that direction for whatever equipment type. So that's why they are important, because you need to know. And we have tools, analytical tools, that can show you what's paying what better as opposed to this or that, right? Trend lines, other analytical tools, you know, so.
Okay. Thank you for that. How do you get paid from carriers?
You go to their house, break in their banks. And so the carriers, truck drivers, owner operators, they get paid one of 3 ways. They get paid if they're working directly with customers, shippers, right? They get paid if it's a brokered load, or if they have a factory company, they get paid through their factory company, right? In all of those situations, you, the dispatcher, is paid after they're getting paid, and you invoice them I tell my students invoice PayPal, Square, invoicing software through QuickBooks, or even some business bank accounts provide invoicing services. But the carriers, the dispatchers are paid once the carrier's paid. Now there is I don't want to say a loophole, but a way to get paid the same time that the carriers are paid if they are working with factoring companies, and if that factoring company offers the ability for you, the dispatcher, to be like an affiliate of them, have an affiliate relationship, where if you bring carriers to them and those carriers are approved for factoring with that factoring company, they'll give you a commission for that, but they'll also provide a service that when your carrier is paid for purchasing or selling those invoices to the factoring company, that they'll pay you at the same time. That way you don't have that worry of not being paid by carriers. So.
Okay. Should a new dispatcher have a carrier or driver before speaking with a broker?
Of course.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're wasting
your proactive, maybe.
Right. Well, you're going to be wasting your time if you're speaking to you don't speak to a broker without a driver, because if you call a broker, they're gonna be like, what do you call me for? Because they're gonna be asking, okay, what's the MC? Are you calling about a load? Why are you wasting my time? Right? I wouldn't recommend calling a broker until you have a driver under a dispatcher agreement and a relationship between you and that driver, so that you can start looking for loads for them. Otherwise, some people say, well, can I call brokers to practice going over that process? Well, that's what my training is for. I pretty much know all the questions and the loopholes and the difficult things to ask, just to kind of fluster the dispatcher so they can understand when they do it in the real world, they'll know what to expect. I get it, right? But you're dealing with brokers. They're very busy. Depending on how much volume of loads or shipments they're trying to move, you're wasting their time, right? So you just started off on the bad foot already without even having a carrier. So I don't recommend doing that. But if you have a new broker that just started, you could practice with them all day because they don't even have customers yet, right? So, but I would suggest to have a carrier, truck driver, owner, operator in place prior to calling the brokers.
And I totally agree. When I'm calling brokers, they just want the meat and potatoes. What are you calling for? Where is it going? What date? How much? What's the rate going to be? They don't have time to practice when you call them. So I totally agree.
So think of this. So brokers, here's their workflow. They have certain number of shipments they have to move, like in the morning, 9 to 1. They take or 9 to noon. They take a break, lunch break for an hour, and they come back. And they have their afternoon shift of freight that they have to get out for their customers. And they may have multiple customers, so they have multiple shipments to get out for multiple customers. So they're doing stuff, right? So to get a call from someone who can't even provide value to them at that point in time will be kind of disturbing. So you got to look at that from that perspective.
Right. So here's my final question. I found it. Where do you get more in-depth training? Since your current course is for beginners, do you offer any consultation? Is there any mentoring or anything like that?
No mentoring, but I do have consultations where you can set aside time on the calendar for 30 and 60-minute phone calls or 30 and 60-minute Zoom calls. Now, there are separate price points for those, but yes, I am entertaining mentorship, but it's probably going to start off local, or I might visit like major cities and have these meetups, as far as
that would be awesome.
Yeah. So, but right now it's just online as far as the consultations, whether it's on the phone and Zoom consultations, and it's on the website also. So.
Okay. Well, Charles, I do thank you for taking time out your morning to speak with me and to also talk to my viewers. Guys, this is good stuff. I will be putting Charles's contact information in my description. I can tell you he's a great instructor. The one thing I absolutely love about Charles is if you call this man, he is going to answer the phone. And if he cannot answer that phone, he will send you a quick text message. So that just lets you know how engaged he is with his dispatchers.
Yeah. Yeah. How many subscribers do you have?
I currently have 10,000 subscribers. Yay!
Yes. Yeah. That's good. So that's good. And I can't do it without my team too. I have a team, you know, give it honor to God first, and then my wife. And if you don't mind me giving some shouts.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah. So God first always, right? And my wife, Tasha. And then I have a team of individuals behind me, Treve, LaDonna, Mr. Nelson. You know, I think you know Mr. Nelson.
I know Mr. Nelson.
Right. And then Mr. Irwin, some mentors. And if I'm forgetting someone, please forgive me. I'm probably going to get a call. But my content team, Sadan, and then my Wix team, Dave, Jessica, and Katie. So there's a lot of people I would not be me without them. So I have to give them their flowers also.
Exactly. Well, Charles, like I said, thank you for taking your time out, taking time out of your busy day to talk with me. And like I said, guys, like, subscribe, pass it on, share it. There are some dispatchers out there who would really appreciate this great information that Charles was able to share with us today.
Right. Now, you have my information, my website.
I have your information, but if you want to say it on the video, go ahead. I'm going to put it in my description also.
Oh, okay. Well, if you put it there, the website is www.exodusdispatchingandtraining.com. Email exoduslogisticsllc. I got several of them. exoduslogisticsllc@yahoo.com. info@exodusdispatchingandtraining.com. And like Chasa said, 757-515-1684. Someone call me right now. I'll pick the phone up. So yeah. So that's it.
Awesome.
That's it. I don't hold you guys up too long.
Thanks, Charles.
Thank you for having me.